Welcome to this concise guide to deadweight loss, where we unpack why some policies shrink the economic pie. In this introduction, I'll set out what deadweight loss means, how market inefficiencies appear, and preview the visual tools we'll use: supply and demand diagrams, wedges and triangles to measure the welfare trade-offs from taxes, subsidies, price controls, and market power. This page contrasts market efficiency with the deadweight loss problem using side-by-side diagrams. On the left, you see consumer and producer surplus adding up when markets allocate resources optimally, and on the right, the same market with a distortion showing a shaded triangle of lost gains. Listen for how that triangle signals foregone transactions and lower overall welfare. Here we focus on taxes and the wedge they create between price paid and price received, illustrated by a shaded triangle. On the supply-demand chart, the script explains that deadweight loss grows with the size of the tax and with how responsive buyers and sellers are. So elasticity matters. The more quantity falls, the larger the welfare loss the triangle represents. This case study on cigarette taxes shows a familiar trade-off. Higher prices reduce smoking and deliver public health gains, but they also shrink the market and generate a measurable deadweight loss. The slide's diagram and stacked boxes make it clear which surpluses are lost and which revenues vanish, reminding us that health benefits can coexist with smaller economic output. The rent-to-ceiling example shows what happens when a price cap binds below equilibrium. Demand increases, supply falls, and landlords reduce upkeep or new construction. The supply-demand graphic highlights a deadweight triangle from excluded mutually beneficial leases, while the text boxes remind us that the vanished surplus equals the economic value lost by both tenants and owners. When a minimum wage is imposed above the market clearing level, the labor market diagram on this slide shows why some workers may lose jobs even as wages rise for others. Firms respond by hiring fewer low-skill workers, creating a gap between eager labor supply and reduced openings, and the shaded triangle captures the employment and output that never materialize. This slide explains how monopoly power creates deadweight loss. By restricting output and raising price, a monopolist excludes consumers whose willingness to pay exceeds marginal cost, but is below the monopoly price. The flowchart visual helps trace how those lost sales transfer no surplus to anyone, leaving total welfare permanently smaller than in a competitive market. Subsidies can flip the problem. By artificially lowering prices, they boost demand and production, but often generate excess supply and wasted resources. The diagram maps how subsidized output uses capital, labor, and materials that society values less than the cost of producing them, producing a deadweight wedge that represents net loss rather than net benefit. To quantify deadweight loss, we use the efficient size sacrifice triangle. Its area equals 1/2 times base times height, where the base is the change in quantity traded and the height is the price gap or tax. This formula converts the shaded triangle on the chart into a dollar measure of lost market value caused by the policy distortion. Elasticity determines how big a distortion turns into a loss. Highly responsive buyers and sellers create large quantity changes and therefore large deadweight triangles, while inelastic markets show smaller distortions for the same price gap. The policy implication shown here is simple targeting inelastic goods can raise revenue with less economic leakage. Putting the evidence together suggests practical choices for minimizing deadweight loss. Keep rates modest and broaden bases. Prefer lump sum transfers over distorting subsidies. Use temporary controls rather than permanent ones, and pair corrective taxes with clear benefits. Regular audits and elasticity analysis help prune measures whose deadweight exceeds their social gains. In closing, think of deadweight loss as the redistribution leakage that accompanies many policy tools. Transferring resources can produce real distributional gains, but also shrink the total welfare pie. The final slide urges transparent quantification of that leakage, so policymakers can select interventions that achieve justice while minimizing the unavoidable sacrifice to overall economic efficiency.